entrepreneurs, are you trying to make bigger profits in your small business? Like many of us, I'm sure you're feeling it. Business is hard. And now more than ever, you need to have a plan to help your business not just survive, but thrive. I'm Marcia Reiner. I'm a profit and business strategist on a mission. I've helped tons of small business owners to establish and implement a tangible plan that guarantees sustainability and guides their growth. So I want to share with you some strategies that I've earned and learned on today's Profit with a Plan podcast. So I'm excited to have my guest today, Julian Hayes. And Julian is an author and a human performance advisor. He's an epigenetic, I hope I said that, epigenetic coach, and he is the host of the Optimal Health for Busy Entrepreneurs. His initial journey began in the pursuit of becoming a doctor. However, he left after 1 year to pursue even bigger dream. And now he's the founder of The Art of Fitness and Life, where the mission is to help entrepreneurs upgrade their entire human system without the guesswork of going through without the guesswork through leveraging their unique DNA and data-driven health metrics, and of one personalized programming and a performance team. So Julian has written over 200 columns in Inc., along with being frequently published over Entrepreneur Success, Chief Executive, Business Insider, and Bodybuilding.com, and many, many more large publications. Julian is just a super wealth of information and getting us in the right mindset, health set to be able to have peak performance in our business. So I'm super excited to have you on the show, Julian. Welcome to Profit with a Plan.
Happy to be here, Marcia. Happy to be here and looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah. So, we came out of a funky year, 2021 just kind of messed up everything from working at home to just stresses and lifestyles. What can we do now as we start to evolve and come out of this? What can we do as business owners and busy entrepreneurs to get that peak performance back again?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, we got to look at this as a recalibration period and just recenter ourselves. I don't like this word new normal, but it's well understood. And we all need to recalibrate this new normal, whatever this looks like for us. And I think first and foremost, this starts with us managing our energy and not necessarily our time, because when you manage your energy, your time will come because you're going to be much more efficient with that time.
Wow. So when you talk about energy, a lot of people start going into that woo-woo thing.
That's a
are
good
we
point.
talking about woo-woo energy, or are we talking about physical strength energy?
Yeah. When we think about energy, you can break it down. Actually, you can think about your physical energy, which is like your body. You can think about your mind. You can think about your emotions, and you can even think about your spirit. And when I say spirit, don't go to the woo-woo. Simply means by spirit, and you can use a different word if you want. Think about your values and your principles. That's going to help you live a coherent life. And the reason why I like to break these down is because when we think about energy, there's a lot of us either we're going to be inactive or we're bored, which is not really probably for listeners of this podcast. They're probably the opposite on the other end of the spectrum. They're probably the overloaded and exhausted category when it comes to their energy. But we want to be in the middle where you have balance and you have flow. And it's looking through those four domains that can really help us recalibrate and not have a repeat of last year and come out of this even better.
I like that, because that's exactly what we need to be focusing on. And energy comes in so many forms, like you said, whether it's mental or strength or what have you. But does food affect the energy?
Absolutely. It's input equals output. So that's at the very foundation. Food in addition to sleep, those are our core pillars. And if you think about our brain is around 60 to 65%, and maybe a little more, I'm forgetting my figures in my head here, of diet of fat. And
really?
a big portion.
I got a fat head for sure. Right?
Yeah. And a big portion of that is going to come from our omega-3s, in particular, the portion DHA. So if you think about it, if you're not feeding your body these proper nutrients, then your brain chemistry is going to be a little off. So your brain is not going to be able to fire as sharp and as quickly as we want it to. And as entrepreneurs and high performers, our brain is pretty much our most valuable weapon, because we have to make decisions on a daily basis. We have to produce content. We still have personal relationships to manage. So we need our brain to be resilient and sharp as possible.
Wow, I love it. Okay, so when we're trying to get our brain super sharp, you had thrown some acronyms out there and some minerals or vitamins that we would take. What are some of the things that we can do to make sure we're sharp? We're super sharp.
Mhm.
I know that sleep is one of those.
Mhm.
And I jokingly say that, you know, as business owners, we get the opportunity to choose which 100 hours we need to work each week, but 24/7 we got to sleep. We still
Mhm.
have to sleep. So I know sleep is important. Tell us more about how we can get our brain working at optimal.
Yeah, when you mention sleep, it's a boring topic. I don't like to sleep. I think we even talked about this off camera that if there's a limitless pill one day, I'm going to be first in line to take that because I do not like to sleep. But I do realize, and I can quantify as well, that when I don't sleep, my entire output, in whether it's me running, whether it's me lifting weights, whether it's just my heart rate, my HRV, every single metric of life is decreased when I don't sleep. And there's
Mm.
research to back this up as well. When we think about one of the key skills, as we talked about earlier, is decision making, that executive functioning. And when we don't sleep, what we're doing is, as I mentioned earlier, we're altering that brain chemistry. But you can look at images if you see a brain image, and you can have your amygdala. Simply think of this as your emotional center. Then you have your prefrontal cortex. Think of this as your logic and reasoning. You have these two things there. But when you're sleep deprived, what's going to happen, and when you see this on a brain imaging, if you get bored and go Google this, what you will see is you'll see heightened activity in your amygdala, and you're going to see lower activity in your prefrontal cortex. And
Hmm.
how we're going to translate this to the real life is you're going to be making more decisions just through emotions
Hmm.
rather than logic and reasoning. And that's not what we want as an entrepreneur. That's really not what we want with our partners, to have a shorter temper, to have a shorter fuse, to have lower emotional intelligence due to this altering that's happening when we're sleep deprived. And another study that I'm thinking of off the top of my head is after sleep deprivation for around 2 weeks, this is around 6 hours or so, you're going to have the same functioning as someone that has been up for 24 hours.
Really?
Yeah. And so the cool thing about sleep, and I should say that about the human body in general, is that you're resilient. And the brain, you can throw anything at the body, and over time, it will get used to it. So you hear a
Hmm.
lot of people say, well, I feel just fine just getting by on what sleep I get. I feel just fine. And I have to remind them there's a difference between good and great. There's a difference between just performing and just peak performing. And the brain gets used to you not getting a lot of optimal sleep. So it's going to calibrate for that standard that you're giving it. But that doesn't mean that
That's
you're going to be a peak performer there.
That's super interesting. So yeah, your body does adjust and evolve to what you're giving it, whether it's the food or the rest that you're getting.
Mhm.
But I never really realized how the brain really lacks on sleep, because isn't sleep the time that your body is regenerating itself and healing and
Mhm.
fixing things? I know that you go to sleep, you know, worrying about a problem, and oftentimes you'll wake up and it's like, there's the answer to it.
Absolutely, yeah. We have different stages of sleep, and when we think about the physical regeneration part, where our hormones, as I say, are working their magic, that's our deep sleep. That's our slow wave sleep. But then that next stage is that REM sleep, that rapid eye movement, and this is where we're consolidating a lot of new information that we learned for the day, and we're throwing it in a blender of existing information that we already have. And then as we're sleeping, we're hitting that on button, and it's all jumbling up, and then we wake up and we wonder, oh, I know this problem now, or I feel smarter. I'm learning this information. I talk about I'm learning a language now. If I don't get any sleep, then I can't synthesize this information for long term memory. So I need sleep so I can process this new information I'm learning, these new skills that I'm gathering throughout the day. I need to put that in my blender and let it go for a little bit. And so that's what's happening when we get that sleep.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, so here's the question. And I know it's different for everybody, but
Mhm.
what's the optimal amount of sleep? Obviously, I need to keep this beauty face going.
Mhm.
I need my 8 hours of sleep, but some people can go on 4 hours.
Mhm.
Where's that magic number?
Yeah, there's a range, and like you said, it's different for everyone. There's genetics that come to play, but generally, I say 7 to 9 hours. And the more active you are, the more stress you put on your body. It doesn't just have to be physical stress, but just the
Mm,
more load that you put on your body throughout the day, generally, the more sleep you're going to need to replenish.
awesome.
So
Awesome.
a guy like myself, I really need 8.5 to 9 because I do a lot of physical activity throughout the day on top of just professional work and thinking as well. But if you're someone who maybe exercises maybe 30, 45 minutes a day, it's not super intense CrossFit style, or you're not running miles or everything, then you could probably do the lower end of that spectrum.
Interesting. Okay. I like it. Okay. So I'm not unusual in requiring my 8 hours of beauty sleep is what I call
No,
it.
no.
Okay, so perfect. We've spoken about sleep, and you
Mhm.
have to sleep. Sleep is important to keep your mind running optimal. What are some of the other things that we can do to keep ourselves performing at the best we can for our clients, for our family, and to live long?
Yeah, this is a very uncommon one, and I would say to be selfish a little bit a- and
Okay,
fill your own bucket up and get some
love it.
structure going. And the reason why I say this because a lot of us are really good-hearted, benevolent people, and that's sometimes to the detriment of us. Is that we pour ourselves into our work, into our clients, into our family, and we don't pour this back into ourselves. And that's good in the short term, but over the long term, we start to feel drained. We're not going to show up the best of ourselves to our clients, to our work, to our interviews, to our family, because we're not pouring into ourselves first. So I say, be selfish, do your own self care, whatever that needs to be. That's going to be different for us. And then start pouring out to people because it's going to amplify. It's going to be that much better when you're feeling fulfilled and your bucket's overflowing.
Love that. I had that same story told to me several years ago that um, most people, if you think about it in this kind of weird way, that most people are, think of them as vampires. They're coming in and they're taking and they're draining you.
Hmm.
Emotional, physical needs. Someone comes into your office, I need this, or the phone call comes at an unopportune moment. Hey, do you have, chance to talk? These vampires are constantly pulling on us. And that is more of a energy drain. Whereas if we fill ourselves up with the things we need to do and control our time, then we're giving instead of having things being taken from us, which is a better energy to give off. If that goes into the woo woo too much, so forgive me on that. But I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about, right? Is that you need to keep yourself filled so you can give, and then controlling your time so you can give and not have them take from you.
Yes,
That makes sense.
exactly. And this is all part of the bigger picture of what we can call just the success paradox in general. Think about this. As you get more successful, you start increasing revenue in your business, you become more in demand. You
Mhm.
have more responsibilities. There's probably added stress along with that. And you have this obligation to yourself. You're probably telling yourself a lot of things that you want to keep this up. You don't want to lose it after you work so hard for it. And
Mhm.
oftentimes what gets placed on the back burner unintentionally is our personal well-being.
Mhm.
So it's not that we do this on purpose. It's just that it just happens over the course of time. And if you're not aware of this and just mindful, it's very easy to unintentionally fall into this.
Not eating breakfast because you got to get on that call, not taking that workout or taking that lunch break because it's now a client lunch meeting, and you don't take those breaks to regenerate and get yourself rested. So yeah, I feel it. I feel it. And I know a lot of our listeners are feeling the stresses of just working way too hard. I find that with the current environment, and I work from my own space, so I'm comfortable with that. But I feel like it's like I turn it on at 7 in the morning, and I often don't turn it off past 7 o'clock at night, so that's a 12-hour day.
Hmm.
And it's like the woman, if you carry a bigger purse, you're going to put more crap in it. So if you carry a smaller purse, you don't have a lot of crap to carry around. We fill our days, and it's horrible for keeping us motivated and going, because we think, oh, just that one more call, that one more task that I need to do. And it's definitely draining.
And I think that's why it's just so critical to establish your own standards of performance, your standards of operations. An example of that, what I mean is, for me, a great day is if I can get 3 to 4 hours of deep work in. This is very meaningful work. This is either me creating content for a podcast, this is me just writing, or this is me just brainstorming and trying to improve the services that I offer already.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, there's different admin stuff that you have to do. There's different calls that you may need to attend to. But if I can get that core deep work done and move the needle forward in the business and the mission, then it's a good day. I always thought it was weird when I hear people say, I grind 18 hours a day just working. There's no way, because that's impossible unless you're on just a consistent dose of Adderall, just constantly. That's the only way that you're going to have that crazy focus for that long.
Well, they didn't say that they were working smart and that they were being effective in their job, but they're doing those busy tasks that make them feel like they're working when they're not working. Because I know that, there are times where I get that burst of energy and I'm like, oh, let's finish this or get into the piece that needs to be completed. And yeah, that's deep work. But then there are those hours of just like, clearing emails and, checking the Facebook. And,
fixing a button on a website. Let me change this color. I want to change this font. Different things like that. I love design and stuff like that. But I don't think that's really going to move the needle compared to other activities that we could be doing.
Yeah. So if we focus and we're trying to be more productive in our business, we're trying to really manage our energy so we can be peak performers. Really, if we take just a couple hours a day, 3-4 hours a day, and really get those things that need to move the needle forward on the business, then that's a great strategy, isn't it?
Yeah, because I think about it this way. For most of us, a lot of business revolves around talking to people. Mm-hmm. So that's a time set aside. But theoretically, if you wake up in the morning and if you want to get your workout in, then that's great. And then you can carve out a little time here and there to get this deep work that requires you to think, that requires you to be creative when you're most fresh, before the world has started calling you, before you got sucked into your email. And when you get that done, it's such a great feeling, because whatever the world throws at you for the rest of the day, you have at least moved the needle an inch forward.
Love it.
And that's a great feeling, because a lot of times, I think, at least personally, times when I felt most frustrated with business and just life in general is when I felt like I wasn't moving forward. I wasn't growing. I was just stagnant. And so I think there is something, and Cal Newport's book, Deep Work, it's a great book to read on this.
Excellent. Yeah, I think I'll pick that up, because I think that's really important. I know a lot of people get up and, rave about the 5 to 7 work time where they get most of their stuff done. So yeah, it's important time management skills. So let's come back. I know we went down a rabbit hole here. So let's kind of come back and talk about some of the things that we can do health-wise to have that peak performance. We talked about sleep and time management and getting those things done. What else can we do to really stay in that peak performance level as a business owner?
Probably another good pillar to look at is obviously nutrition. And with nutrition, this could open up a can of worms, because there's so many different types of diets and methodologies out there. So I look at nutrition as truly a choose your own adventure. Of course, and if you think about it, you can look at all the popular diets that are out right now. They all have certain things in common. None of them tell you to eat junk food, processed foods, binge on sugary drinks. So we know that's the basics, right?
Right.
And so the next thing comes down to, what types of foods do you like to eat? And so this is where I tell people to not necessarily be attached to a diet, but start to get attached to a framework
Mm,
when it
good.
comes to your food. So for a guy like myself, I'm not really in love with red meat.
Okay.
Um, so I just choose not to eat it. I choose to eat a diet that is more seafood based and a little more carbohydrates than most people, but it suits my
But you also
lifestyle.
run like crazy too. So
I
you
run
need the
and live like
carbohydrates.
crazy. Yeah, so that's the thing with people. That's why nutrition is very individualized. And so the core pillars, processed foods, no sugars. When I say sugars, I'm talking like junk sugars and that kind of
White
stuff.
sugars.
White sugars, yeah. And then after that, I would like to you look at your lifestyle. What kind of foods do you enjoy? I'm a proponent of fruits and plants just from throughout history. We've seen, and there's research on this, that generally people who eat more fruits and plants, they tend to live longer and they tend to be a little healthier. I
Hmm.
know there's different crazes now where it's eliminating that eating just meat. And I just don't know yet. And so I tend to not, I feel better with fruits and plants in my life.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's finding the right thing that you
Hmm.
can tolerate and what's available to you nearby, and doing it. But so nutrition being a good part, most of us aren't getting all of the minerals and
Hmm.
nutrients that we need from our intake of food. So how do you feel about supplements and getting us to that peak performance?
Yeah. I like supplements. I take supplements myself to fill in the gaps that I might not get with my daily nutritional regimen. So I'm a huge proponent of supplements under the right mindset.
Mm,
Supplements supplement your diet. Supplements supplement your lifestyle. It's not the other way around. Oftentimes, I see people with a huge treasure trove of supplements, but like their foundational habits are not even that good. And so you're not going to get the benefit of the supplements without taking care of your foundation. It's essentially
smart.
like it's essentially being obsessed with tactics, and you're a marketing genius. So we're in marketing, and it's someone that's obsessed with funnels and all this tactical information, but they don't even know who they serve.
Right.
So
Right.
what can you expect? And so that's
More
the way
results. Right.
yeah, that's the way I look at this with supplements. But I am a fan of supplements, and for a lot of people, I don't like to give blanket advice, but it just depends. So I'll give you some examples that I've seen and that's helped. For clients, for people who struggle with sleep and magnesium, that's a very common deficiency that we have
Hmm.
in the States in general. So if you're having trouble with relaxing and resting at night, magnesium glycinate is a great form that could be helpful. I think a great multivitamin, multi-mineral, that's a good supplement, foundational supplement to have.
Hmm.
Vitamin D, that's with K2, that's a great foundational supplement to have. And another one is some type of omega-3 supplement as well. I think that spectrum, that's like a foundational pillar.
Hmm.
And then you can start to grow from there after you
Right.
built that existing infrastructure.
So when you're taking this information from a sense, you do things quite a bit differently than the typical person who's trying to get you into peak performance. You're looking at it from a data driven area, right?
Mhm.
You're pulling this information from blood work and tests that are done. Tell me a little bit more about how you do your work.
Yeah, so it's very data driven, and I like to get as much as information as I can because we're 99%, 99.9% the same. That 0.1% is huge.
Mhm.
And so the first thing I do is I start with a pretty thorough assessment, and that starts with getting your genetics done. That starts with getting like a lifestyle assessment, so you can look at your heartbeats every moment of the day over like a 3-day period. And you can kind of look at different periods of the day where you're stressed. You can look at kind of your sleep quality, your activity, and you can start to paint a picture. And so that's what I'm trying to do with gathering the data, the blood work, the cognitive tests, if we're going down that route. I get as much data as possible. And that tells me a story of the person because data alone is not good enough because you can't just take it at face value. You also got to
Mhm.
hear what the person is experiencing. So we combine those two, and then you start to create a program based on that. And then I have other people that does the fitness side of things, the programming it that's specifically for them. But I see the world, and for entrepreneurs and high performers, time is of the essence. And I want to be as precise as possible. And I love some of my favorite athletes always had a performance team, and they did all these extreme um, data driven methods to stay at the top of their game. And I wanted something like that personally. So I started this just being selfish, and I wanted it for myself. And then I thought there's 7 something billion people in the world, that there's a handful of people who will be interested in it.
Just a handful, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that's it. I think that we entrepreneur types are trying to do so much and change so much in our life and be top performers. We have to think of ourselves like the Tiger Woods, or the I was gonna
Tom.
say Michael Jordan's, the
Yeah.
Tom Brady's, and the people
Yeah.
that really, perform at their peak. And we need to do that for our business too.
Yeah. I'm glad you.
And so,
I'm glad you said that, because it's like my dream for more entrepreneurs to think of themselves as an athlete entrepreneur.
mm,
That's like a dream of mine.
I like it though. But when we're trying to change the world and we're trying to get our message and our service and our product out there and serve, we have to take care of the temple first. And I love this idea, and why I brought you on the show was to really talk about that and how we can get our body in the best stage it can be, so we can perform at our best level and change the world.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's the principle of slowing down to speed up.
Yes, that's a hard
And
one for many of us to go with, right?
I'm guilty of that too. I love to be hard charging, but there's a yin and yang to everything.
Yeah,
And
I like it.
there's just some laws of human nature that you can't avoid. You can push the threshold, you can build up your tolerance, you can build up your performance, but the equation is always there. Add more stress to your system, and then rest and recover, and that builds your system up stronger. That makes you more
Mm.
resilient. It is as simple as that. It doesn't mean crazily extend yourself every day to push your boundaries. Just push a little bit each day, and then rest and recover, and you're going to have a bigger threshold in the next. And before you know it, 6 months, you're going to be a totally different person.
I like it. I like it a lot, because I think it's so important as we recalibrate, as you said in the beginning, to the new normal, the future of what it looks like. We have to take care of the temple and make sure that we're going to be there to serve the people that we want to serve, including our family and ourselves, and to be able to have that long lifestyle. I know that stress is such a damaging force on our body and on our minds. And if we can manage that by eating well, getting the rest we need, creating the energy, I love being selfish a little bit. I mean, I know we forget that, and I think that this is it's such an important piece to make
And
us top performers.
and I will say, when we think about stress, I challenge listeners to not always look at stress as a negative.
Mm,
A
okay.
lot of time, a lot of times, stress, what we think of stress, because there's really no such thing as good or bad events. It's really our perception.
Mm,
And so a lot of times, like, this business event is stressing me. Figuring out this funnel, figuring out this client is stressing me. What if I said instead, this is an opportunity.
yeah.
It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for me to grow. So maybe this difficult client is a little tough right now, but it's an opportunity for you to improve your skill, to level up, for when the next 3 clients come along. It's going to be a piece of cake because you're used to
Right.
it now. It's
We're
it,
training.
yeah. And so, just like over the last year, a lot of crazy stuff has happened. We can't deny that, but it's an opportunity as well. Even right now, it's still an opportunity for us to become more resilient.
Hmm.
And this will do nothing but just serve us in the long run for whenever this stuff ends and we come out of this and we get back to socializing more and traveling more, and we're going to be a stronger, more capable individual because we went through this kind of tough period.
Like it. And we took care of ourselves in the process, or we're gonna start taking care of ourselves in the process.
Exactly. And for the competitive people out there, this is a great opportunity because your competition might be slacking. Your competition might be saying, oh, the gyms are closed, or all these extra things I have to go through. And they might be gaining weight, losing some of their energy, losing their sword is becoming a little duller. And you can, and this is an opportunity for you to catch up to your competition, or to even surpass your competition, or to even further distance yourself from the competition, because you are doing things right now that they're not willing to do because the conditions aren't as favorable for them.
Love it. Yes. So important. So just exciting to know that we can, that's one thing that we can control, right? We can control our body, we can control our actions. And if we take care of this, that, like you said, is the probably the number one engine driving our business, we can take care of that in a better way. We're going to be better off in the long run. And even in the short run, we're going to be outperforming the guys that are still playing with the COVID-19, right?
Yeah. The pandemic pounds, in general, a lot of people have, and I understand, I'm not throwing judgment at them, but there's opportunity. Anytime something comes up, you have choices to decide what you decide to do. And this is just an opportunity. And I don't know any other way but to just make the best of it. You kind of have no choice, or because I don't really believe in sitting in idle. I think you're getting better, you're getting worse. I
agree. You're always moving.
Yeah.
A decision is still a decision, even if you're not making a decision to make a decision. So yeah.
Even if it's moving slower right now, you're still moving. So it's easier to keep momentum, even if you're just crawling, than it is to try to generate momentum from just being sedentary for so long. So true.
All right, Julian, this has been really valuable information, and I think it's perfect timing for the listeners to hear. We're coming out, we're closing up February. It's time to start rolling again. This is the push that we all need, and great thought points on it. Where can listeners find out more about you?
Yeah, you can just go to my home base of theartoffitnessandlife.com, and I will have links to everything there that could possibly interest you. And if you have a personal question, just shoot me an email at julian@theartoffitnessandlife.com, and I will be glad to assist you in any way possible, because as I've learned, it takes a village to succeed.
Isn't that the truth? It does take a village. So we're so happy you're part of this village, and I thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this.
Perfect. So listeners, I hope you've got something out of this. I mean, Julian was really, it really got the thinking, helping you think in the right path to make you a peak performer. And it really starts with taking care of the body. So I hope you've gotten that information, and you're going to start to think about this in a way that can make your business more profitable, right? And so considering what's happened over the past year, as we've been talking about, now more than ever, it's important to create your own profit plan so that you too have a thriving business. So to help you, my listeners, further, I'm hosting a webinar next Thursday where I'll be sharing 3 strategies to help you create a thriving profit in your business. You can always register for free at thrivingprofit.com. As always, we'd love to hear any of your questions, feedback. Subscribe to the show, comment on it, tell us what you think, and we would love to hear that. And as always, you can catch Profit with a Plan on any of your favorite podcast players. And we're looking forward to more great profitable information on next week's show. So until then, make your plans and profit with them. Thanks, Julian.
Thank you.